Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Okay, let's dive into this because today we're tackling something absolutely crucial: how to literally transform our most frustrating, toxic relationships. We're going to look at the psychology of interpersonal conflict and discover how doing, well, absolutely nothing might just be the most aggressive and effective move you can possibly make. Now, I want you to be totally honest here. Picture a specific person you clash with. Maybe that one coworker who loves to CC your boss on minor typos, or that frenemy who just pushes your buttons. Now imagine they make a very public, super embarrassing mistake. Do you feel that sudden, dark urge to just jump in and crush them, to totally exploit that failure? If you do, hey, don't worry. That dark little urge, it is completely 100% normal. Section 1. The urge to attack. Let's look at where this intense desire to retaliate actually comes from. See, this urge is pure animalistic instinct. It's a subconscious psychological drive. When you see a rival fail, your brain instantly goes into overdrive to protect your own status and assert superiority over these frenemies. It's kind of funny how a modern office can suddenly feel like a wildlife documentary, right? But listen, this isn't a personality flaw. It's a primal survival reflex wired right into our psychology. We're instinctively driven to capitalize on the weakness of a threat. And here's the key takeaway for you. Recognizing this urge is vastly better than suppressing it. So please don't judge yourself for having this instinct. If you try to blindly swallow it down, it just leaks out in passive-aggressive ways, like, aggressively sighing or typing a little too hard on your keyboard. The goal here is just to notice it before you act. Just say to yourself, okay, there's that primal instinct. Which brings us to section 2. The illusion of winning. Because giving in to that urge is a total psychological trap. We face a really massive core conflict in these moments, and this brilliantly illustrates the divide. On one hand, attacking and pointing out their mistake gives you a massive, immediate rush of superiority. But it's fleeting. It is just temporary satisfaction. On the other hand, we have observing, just watching them fail without saying a word. Sure, it lacks that instant rush, but it absolutely paves the road for long-term peace. Because when you give in an attack, what actually happens? Well, to put this data into perspective, about 6 out of every 10 times, it just makes your opponent incredibly stubborn and worsens the relationship. 3 out of 10 times, they retaliate and attack you back even harder. That leaves a measly 10% for that fleeting satisfaction you were chasing. I mean, the math just doesn't work in your favor, does it? Plus, reacting emotionally literally puts you on their exact level. Think about it. When someone is being chaotic and you fight back with chaos, you totally strip away your own advantage. You guarantee that the toxic cycle of conflict continues indefinitely because, well, you've willingly stepped right into their ring. Section 3. The power of pausing. Let's slow down for a second and talk about the solution. Let's walk through exactly how this works in real time. At 0 seconds, your rival makes a glaring error. At 1 second, that animalistic urge we talked about strikes you like a bolt of lightning. But here is the magic. At 3 seconds, you take a conscious, deep breath. You just pause. By 5 seconds, the urge has peaked, and you can now make a rational, totally calm choice. This tiny 5-second gap of time, that is exactly where you reclaim your absolute power over the entire situation. Because when you utilize that pause, you create an incredibly stark contrast in the room. The attacker remains frantic, emotional, and noisy, but you become completely grounded, quiet, and unbothered. Without saying a single word, everyone in the room, including the attacker, can see the massive difference in emotional maturity. So the crucial point is this: accepting an attack without reacting to it is not weakness. Society loves to tell us that if we don't fight back, we're somehow losing the battle. We need to completely shatter that myth right now. Choosing not to react, especially when you have every ability to do so, is a display of profound, unshakable strength. Moving on to Section 4, how the attacker changes. This is where the psychological domino effect gets fascinating. Let's move to and see how this builds. Step 1, they launch an attack. Step 2, you stay completely calm. You offer absolutely nothing. Step 3, because you give them nothing to push against, they suddenly feel foolish and empty. It's like their argument slowly suffocates in the silence. And step 4, they ultimately retreat or change targets. Why do they retreat? Well, as you remain calm, their actions feel increasingly pointless to them. They start to sense this super uncomfortable gap in maturity between you and them. They feel completely awkward and exposed, totally seen through, realizing their old toxic tactics just don't work on you anymore. And human nature dictates that when a tactic stops working, they're going to instinctually seek out easier, more reactive targets. 0. That is the exact amount of words, the exact amount of energy, and the exact amount of effort required from you to make the attacker realize their own foolishness. Literally 0. Your silence is doing all the heavy lifting for you. Which means you aren't forcing them away. You aren't shouting them down or setting aggressive boundaries. They are choosing to retreat all on their own. This distance is created entirely naturally through your composure, requiring absolutely no aggressive demands on your part whatsoever. Finally, Section 5, a conflict-free life. Let's see how this transforms your whole social reality. Let's break down the ultimate ROI of this paradigm shift. If your strategy is giving in to the urge, the immediate result is a fleeting ego boost, sure, but the long-term reality is constant, draining clashes. But if your strategy is pausing, the immediate result is uncomfortable restraint. And yeah, actually, it's really hard at first. But the long-term reality is effortless dominance and peace. The initial discomfort pays off massively. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the unexpected side effect of all this. Your composure first acts as a mirror, right? Forcing them to look at their own childish behavior. But eventually, it becomes a magnet. Over time, the very people who used to attack you might actually start imitating your calmness, drawn to that quiet strength you project. To summarize the beautiful, far-reaching effects of this mental framework, when you master non-reaction, daily conflict triggers naturally vanish. You don't have to fight fires anymore because the sparks simply stop flying. You become a silent role model. A natural hierarchy of respect is established where people genuinely look up to you. Ultimately, your life just feels remarkably lighter and a whole lot easier. By adopting this quiet strength, you don't just win the fight. You transcend the battlefield altogether. You're no longer playing a rigged game of emotional ping pong. You've stepped off the board entirely. I want to leave you with this final, powerful thought. Quietly accepting is not a weakness. It is the ultimate proof of strength. The next time someone tries to drag you into their chaos, take that 5-second pause. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. So the next time you're provoked, ask yourself, is my reaction giving them exactly what they want? Or is my silence my greatest weapon?